This is a podcast from the Bugle.
The sea foams, a giant seashell rising from the deep. Water rolls off to each side as it begins to move slowly towards the shore. The top of the shell opens majestically and a woman is revealed, standing in astonishing beauty, hair barely veiling her modesty. The sand crunches quietly as the shell beaches itself on the shore and Venus steps from the tongue of the giant oyster onto land. Her white foot, delicately pointed, rests in the sand. She reaches a hand out to the silent, gaping fisherman, struck dumb with wonder. Touching his cheek with a feather-light hand, she says, "This is the Gargle. Welcome to the Gargle, the sonic glossy magazine to the Bugle's audio newspaper for a visual world. All of the news, none of the politics. I'm your host, Alice Fraser, and your guest editors for this week's edition of the magazine are James Nokise.
Hello.
Hello. And Siân Docksey. Hello.
Hello.
It's exciting to have you both here. And before we sit down at the magnificent feast that is this week's top stories, let's have a look at the front cover of the magazine. This week, the front cover is Anne Hathaway posing provocatively as the unrealistic Hollywood representation of a hot 40-year-old mum, despite being a hot 41-year-old mum. And the satirical cartoon this week is Scarlett Johansson dressed as Ariel from The Little Mermaid facing off against OpenAI's Sam Altman dressed as Ursula the Sea Witch during the scene in which Ursula takes Ariel's voice. This is the story that OpenAI asked Scarlett Johansson if they could use her voice to voice their chatbot, and she said no, and then they did it anyway. Which I feel is much more unfair than the contract between Ariel and Ursula the Sea Witch. Other than being underage, that was a perfectly legitimate contract. You can't renege. That brings us to our top story this week. Apparently, if you wear a t-shirt with a stop sign on it, a car won't hit you. This is our car news now. Siân, you've been in a car. Can you unpack this story for us?
Yeah, firstly, can we just acknowledge the sheer confidence of a man walking around with a big red stop sign t-shirt? Like, I feel that's less of an experiment about technology. It's more of a stressful social experiment. But I was thinking about it being a guy, because, like, if I was walking around London with a t-shirt that had a big red stop sign on it, I would get so many, like, eye rolls. People would assume I was making some kind of statement about consent. They would walk up to me. They would argue with me about it. They'd assume there'd be a QR code I'd make them scan to sign a petition. I just envy the world this man lives in, where it's about technology rather than people. So what this guy claims he was trying to achieve was to test driverless cars on what are called edge cases. So unusual things in the environment where the car suddenly has to make a decision. So the car has to decide whether there's a real risk of causing harm or whether to crack on. So he's walking around roads where driverless cars operate, catfishing as a stop sign, essentially, to see whether the car would be tricked and man can still overpower machine. I'm going to be honest. I think that the commentators on this news story over-egged it when they said it was like a nuanced technology experiment. I think that testing will car stop when we want it to is just not that deep. But great that he's giving it a try. He wasn't walking straight into traffic either. He was walking along the sidewalk to see if a car would mistake him for a road sign, like the world's most boring cosplay convention. Honestly, I'm on the side of the cars with this one. I think the whole thing, it just seems quite rude. I think that the driverless car is not at fault. The car is trying to do its job, and some guy is jumping out from the sidelines and going, "Haha, I fooled you by disguising myself as the instructions you have been trained to follow." It's like if you trained a lab rat to go round a maze following lumps of cheese and then tricked it with a lump of cheese that's just a marshmallow with a sign that says cheese. The rat is just doing its job. We have not demonstrated the superiority of the human species. And the main thing I thought was interesting about this story is how AI is so incredibly polite. There's something in these driverless cars that is so conscientious to the point of possibly having low self-esteem. Maybe the issue with driverless cars isn't a public traffic health hazard. It's that we need to give them more confidence. Or maybe it's a cultural thing. Perhaps American driverless cars come with this Calvinist, Protestant strong work ethic. If he tested it in Southern Europe, the Southern European driverless driverless car would see a man with a stop sign as a challenge, like waving a red flag in front of a bull, but the bull has sat nav and the flag is a man. So,
well, I just feel like this is a failure of the education system, essentially, because what we've done here is we've put all these people in charge of programming the cars, none of whom have philosophy degrees. And if they had philosophy degrees, they would have spent way too much time doing the trolley problem. And they would have answers to all of these questions, all of the hypotheticals that first-year university philosophy students ask themselves. You know, is it more, should you run over a flock of pigeons or a child? What about if there is a man dressed as a pigeon versus a child dressed as a pigeon? All of these questions are important as you encounter Kant and Hegel. Would have been hashed out well and truly, and now we're having to find them out on the fly, as it were. By the way, a man dressed as a pigeon cannot fly. You find that out once when you push him off a roof. James?
Look, I'm not going to say that I was once drunk in first year at university dating a philosophy student and found myself in Wellington's Manners Mall hanging upside down from a tree, dressed like the crow Brandon Lee and screaming, "I am a pigeon, cuckoo, cuckoo." But my main concern with this is the combination of our first two stories, which is you're going to have cars that sound like Scarlett Johansson. And then there's just going to be a bunch of dude bros with stop T-shirts, just making cars stop when they don't want to and starting to go, "Hey, how are you doing?" And just starting to just rizz up these driverless cars because if no one's going to get in them, then they're going to get in them. And can we just appreciate that the man who pulled off this prank, which for our American listeners is so San Francisco, it's such a San Francisco thing. His name, I believe, is Jason B. Carr. And he is an enthusiastic bike rider who must have been mercilessly bullied about his car last name to become so anti-car in his adulthood.
Are we seeing a trauma response in this story? Is that the sort of cumulative effect of 10 years of name bullying?
Art's a trauma response, my friend?
Yes, I'm the only human car on this road, he says, facing down his nemesis. I mean, it is quite a risky proposition, putting your money where your mouth is. He has to be fairly certain that the car wouldn't have run him over, or that he would get a lot of money if he was run over by a car.
It's also just one of those great stories which sounds like it's like this kind of genius prank, but you just know was two dudes on a couch smoking a joint going, "Bro, do you reckon if I wore a stop sign T-shirt, these automatic cars would stop? Let's try it."
I mean, it is a very refined experiment. The next one is the one where you paint a stop sign on your bottom and you pull your pants down and you show your bottom to the car.
Did you guys have the thing at like Freshers Week or like random uni club nights where it's like the traffic lights thing? So single people wear a green Go T-shirt, like it's complicated people wear like a yellow T-shirt, and the I'm in a relationship people wear the like red stop sign T-shirt. Like, yeah, the thing about having Scarlett Johansson's voice and people jumping out of cars creates like an AI dystopian model of this like
wait.
dating process.
What orgy-driven British university were you at? New Zealand is nowhere near that open.
Oh, really? I mean, I don't think of it so much as open as just like ruthlessly businesslike or efficient. It's like you're triaged. I mean, I don't know. I think it's the opposite of open. I think it is sort of it's going back to universities as a sort of like, okay, great, let's just like create the couplings of this next generation of people.
I do just want to point out that we're not prudish in New Zealand. We just have a different system where you wear the same rugby jersey as whoever you hook up with, and then you get drunk with them, and then you date them for your entire time at university.
Your ad section now, because you can't be what you can't buy. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Lips. Lips, the boobs of the face. Don't ask me what boobs are. Yes, they're the butt of the chest. And are you a big, strong man? Are you hard and dry and cracked like the desert and definitely not like a wet woman's hand with her weak, moist palms? Are your eyes gritty and bloodshot and handsome? Has your sperm become pearl-like in a bad way? Try half a glass of water. Half a glass of water for men. Slam it down for the most masculine quench. Our waking hours are dictated by the brutal hierarchies of human society. Someone always above, someone always below. Have you ever wanted to sleep in a hierarchy? We have, and that's why our sponsor today is bunk beds. Bunk beds, child-sized metaphors for life. Now it's time for Vatican news, and I love when Vatican news isn't like horrifying, heartbreaking, generational, traumatic news. This is the news that the Vatican has released new guidance for supernatural phenomena. Now, Siân, you're a witch. I'm going to come to you, but we're going to start with James Nokise because you've heard of the Vatican. Can you unpack this story for us?
Thank you. As the son and grandson of Presbyterian ministers, it's always heartening to see the Catholics catch up. This is a changing of the rules so that the acknowledgement of like supernatural phenomenon, you'll know stories like where someone opens a sandwich and the ham looks like Christ, or there's a particularly strong curry and they destroyed a toilet, but it resembles the Virgin Mary. These now need Vatican approval to be declared holy. You can't just have the local bishops and whatnot just declaring it. This is because they've discovered with social media, with things going more online, with YouTube, that there's just apparently, and I know this will be shocking to people who follow religion, a lot of grifters who are just using religious phenomenon to get people to give cash, to feel better about themselves. So as opposed to Catholics and the Reformation, that's a different podcast. So the point is that these new rules in place should streamline the whole discovering a supernatural phenomena, reporting a supernatural phenomena, and having the Vatican itself declare it. Otherwise, as we all know, Christianity could just splinter into dozens of different subsects.
This story was sent in, of course, by our Catholic correspondent, Alison Spittle, as a roving reporter. If you ever have any stories that you think we would like to have, you can tweet us at Hello Garglers, or you can look us up also on Blue Sky and send the story in. Siân, how do you feel about all this?
Oh, I loved it. Vatican dropping the sickest subclause to the supernatural recognition criteria. I loved it. I really enjoyed how it felt like essentially the Pope is like having to rein in a load of overconfident like startups on the side that are damaging the parent company brand, and is having to sort of set up a system for like blue tick verified papal seal of approval on the supernatural sightings. I mean, I thought it was interesting as ever, like religion and capitalism have a difficult relationship, and some of the grifters are using it for like financial gain. Like that seems to be the main thing they're trying to rein in, of if there's any like profit in finding just like stigmatas or blood-soaked crucifixes out in the wild. Also, I really love the kind of weary tone that came with that, of like, oh god, another blood-soaked crucifix, is it? It had real kind of clean up on aisle 5 kind of energy. But yeah, I think, what was it? So they, now the church, are going to start making the distinction about whether the sighting seems truthful and in good faith, or whether it's suspicious and derives from the pursuit of profit, power, fame, social recognition, or other personal interest. I'm mainly devastated because there goes my business plan for the Like a Virgin Mary pop-up mocktail bar.
I find this sort of vaguely hypocritical by the church, who famously have done things like selling indulgences and presumably are now researching camel-sized needles for rich people to pass into heaven with. But on the other hand, I can understand why they don't want their brand diluted. This is a classic shareholders problem, which is it's being diluted out from under them. James?
Did you guys know that there's a gift shop in the Vatican where you can buy photos of the Pope outside the Vatican, like a buddy Jesus? Like,
Oh no.
is it like the Catholic Church is essentially what modern capitalism is built on? Like the entire structure is what your corporation is. The Pope is just the CEO. Like, it's just really funny for them to be going, what? People making money off this? Oh, that seems wrong. We should go and sit down in the basement of the Vatican Museum in one of our 20 golden carriages and think about the ramifications of this.
I think we need to have a bit more sympathy for the Pope here, because it's like he's running into the problem that musicians have with no longer being able to make money from streaming services, and is like with the gift shop, like, I've got to sell merch, man, you know? And all of these people out there like begging the Pope brand need to be reined in. So I don't know. I enjoy this as a kind of like, if there is something sacred, how do you build sustainable income around it instead of it being eaten alive by these vultures? I never thought
OnlyFans, obviously.
Yeah.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, Pope apologism. I think we should do it.
James?
Oh no! Look, I'm going to get too giddy if I keep making jokes about the Catholic Church. I think it's fine. You know, let them have their cake.
I think you'll find the cake is Jesus. And that brings us to our reviews section. As you know, each week we ask our guest editors to bring in something to review out of 5 stars. Siân, what have you brought in for us this week?
I would like to review cat ASMR. So this is being talked about a bit in Belgium, where I'm from, because there's this growing trend of bringing animals into hospices and hospitals as part of patient care, for real. And part of that is just this very wholesome, ordinary thing of like, hey, most people enjoy the experience of having a pet. That's why in the UK we have cat cafes instead of funded mental health services. But part of the thinking is that like the purring of a cat as like a sound wavelength is inherently therapeutic. Like, it's a mindfulness activity. It has potentially measurable health benefits. And I was thinking about this because 2 weeks ago I was cat sitting for a friend, and they had 2 cats, and these cats were super friendly. Like, they're beautiful, but they did the thing of like, they would just come up to you and start purring, and this had the opposite effect of me to ASMR. It was not relaxing, not because I don't like cats or the sound of cats purring, but because I felt like they were just doing the job of cat really badly. I didn't feel there was that kind of window where you have to like earn the respect of a cat before it concedes to like letting you rub its belly and roll around. I don't know. I just kind of felt like I was being shortchanged, so I didn't feel like I'd earned it. I didn't feel I trusted the cat, and that made me quite stressed. I felt the cat was being more just like dog and bounding up unreservedly, where I think, no, God, could please just have some more self-respect. So
Wait, are you just slut-shaming the cat?
No, I'm doing the opposite. I'm saying own your worth. This service that you offer is precious. Again, set up a stronger paywall. Look to the Pope for some structural advice. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm kind of on the fence about the cat ASMR because, yeah, I think it's this inherent suspicion when it's offered too readily. Separately, though, I think that we should be more ambitious with animals in hospitals. I think if someone comes in with a broken leg, just give them a lizard and see what happens. They might be overwhelmed by the beauty of nature and miraculously heal. Or put an ostrich into an operating theatre. It might have some great ideas. So cat ASMR, I'm thinking overall 3 stars.
James, what have you brought in for us this week?
I'm very excited. I am this week reviewing Auntie's pineapple pie. Now,
oh, wow.
This is a great delicacy of the Pacific people. Very rare to have in a short stay back at my folks. What you've got is basically a cheesecake style crust, something we are told is pineapple. It's like a combination of canned and jelly. Look, don't overthink it. A little bit of cream on top, and then if you really fancy, you chuck some tinned apricots on top of that. I cannot overstate that this is crack to Pacific people. Such is the power of the pineapple pie that upon it coming into my father's house as the lone sibling who is staying here at the moment, it was my duty to inform the other siblings that pineapple pie had arrived, lest I be discovered and ostracized from my family for denying them the pineapple pie. I will now sample said pineapple pie, which is amazing. Just absolutely so good. Although anyone who is familiar with my work will notice I said it is double cream on top of the pineapple, and I remain lactose intolerant, which is why I'm hoping we finish up this episode soon.
Thank you. How many out of 5 stars for pineapple pie?
5 pineapples.
5 pineapples out of 5 stars. And that brings us to our next story. This is French news, and in possibly the Frenchest news, the post office in France has released a scratch and sniff stamp with a baguette on it that's meant to smell like fresh bread. Siân, you've eaten bread before. Can you unpack this story for us?
So many problems with this story. Firstly, should not be able to smell post. Just no, this is obscene. What a horrible prospect. Even if it is a nice smell. Like, why would you want to associate a wonderful smell like a bakery with your tax return? Smell is just too emotional for admin. But for real, like, because in the brain, right, the smell area is linked up to the part of the brain that is most emotional. It's like precious childhood memories, smell of the sea, love, sex, nice stuff. Like, I don't want that linked up with my Thames water bill. I hate this news. I'm sorry. I appreciate it's the most French thing that's ever happened. Oh, my other problem. So it's a scratch and sniff thing. Who is out there scratching bread? That's obscene. Like, no one picks up a croissant and thinks, oh, better scratch away the top layer of this on their merciless hunt for dough. Any food that you have to scratch your way into, something has gone horribly wrong. I've never had to scratch my way in or out of a cake, and I hope to God I never have to. Yeah, honestly, I found this news the most upsetting of all the features. I feel like my mail has been forever just like sullied with this, and my appreciation of the French and of bread will never recover.
Well, I feel like the French were the ones who invented like the scented billet, the idea of a woman putting her perfume on a love letter and sending it in or something. But I feel like this is sort of a distorted rendition of that concept.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet that had snippets of Napoleon's love letters to Josephine, and one of it was like, "I'm back in 3 days, don't wash." So obviously, yeah, like, yeah. Oh, James just kind of folded in half. Yeah.
Goddamn Napoleon.
Match his freak. I don't know. Oh, also, the French baguette was given UNESCO heritage status in 2022. How long has that baguette been there? That is not a baguette anymore. That's a traffic bollard. I was really upset by this story.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I mean, obviously this is old news that the baguette was granted heritage status, but I don't really understand what the baguette having heritage status, what the implications of that are, other than not being allowed to do it in a different way, I guess, or if there's one in front of your house, you're not allowed to build an extension.
Is it possible to give something heritage status that is inherently like a perishable good? Does that even work?
I mean, look, if anyone can do it, the French can. I feel like this is not the right move. I don't know who is this for, other than I guess it's really for the messenger pigeons, right? This is for messenger pigeons carrying letters who want a bread-based reward.
Yeah, is it also not going to, as a health hazard, drastically increase the risk of people eating their post, but with a completely valid justification of, it smelled great, you made it smell like bread. I'm sorry, I can't pay my phone bill, I've ingested it.
Oh, I mean, you start by licking the stamp. Where does it end?
Yeah.
James?
I have 2 big issues. One, it smells like a baguette on the stamp that has then been in a post box and gone to a mail center and then been in a post bag and then has been on the floor of your apartment or whatever through the mail slot. The second is France, they said that the baguette was the jewel of our culture. France. Ça va? Come on, man. Like this, the jewel. Like in New Zealand, we love a steak and cheese pie. Why? Because there's too much weed and not enough people close by. And even we would not declare that the jewel of our culture. Like France, we've been in patisseries. We know you've got fancier stuff than the baguette. You can't declare it. You're not Japanese. You can't claim minimalism. You're the French. You are the height of complicated, unnecessary food. You saw snails and went, let's make this a thing. No one asked you to. There were other things in the garden for you to eat. And yet somehow you have ended up declaring the breadstick, because that's what it is. Let's be honest, France. It's a fancy sandwich topping. You just, the jewel. This is why French Polynesia wants out, guys.
Aren't you going to cover the Olympics in France, James? You might.
Yeah, if you can delay releasing this until after I'm back from Paris 2024, that'd be great, guys.
I feel like you're going to be attacked by baguette wielding outrage.
No, I'm going to wake up in my hotel room and there'll be like a baguette in the bed with me.
To be fair, that happens on a good night in France too.
Yeah,
So
that's
it wouldn't
a
be the
tip.
first time.
Being attacked by baguettes is how people tip out there. If anything, it's worked really well.
Well, in other licking news, microplastics have permeated all testicles. All testicles have microplastics in them. This is devastating news. James Nokise, you've got a pair. Can you unpack this story for us?
Well, it's nice of you to acknowledge that for once, Alice. Look, the secret's out. We finally did it. Men have come up with. It took us a while, to be honest. We've been skirting around. But we got together last year, and 2024, we've decided this is the new excuse for us not to wear a condom. We've got baby, don't worry, I've got microplastics in my balls. What turns out. They did a study on dogs' balls, and they found there was microplastics in all the dogs' balls. And they were like, well, this isn't good. I wonder, as we all think when we look at dogs' balls, if it's similar with men. And so they got some testicles of men, and they discovered not only were there microplastics in every single sample of testicles, but it was 3 times the average of dogs. Now, what's the difference there? Dogs constantly licking their balls. Men unable to lick their balls. I'm just throwing that out there. Helping relationships as best I can. So, look, this is, for anyone who wants to know the science, it's the same science it's always been. It's microplastics are in everything. And now, finally, we've discovered it's balls as well. We're not sure what we can do about any of this. There's a very massive concern that it's going to affect fertility rates with men. Some would argue porn and toxic masculinity have slightly higher causes of affecting fertility rates with single straight men. But apparently it's microplastics to blame now. So that is actually the genuine scientific concern behind all this. The reason they're reporting it is they think that microplastics being in every guy's balls is going to affect, I think, circulation. I'm told it happens to men quite a bit over the age of 40, and they will not be able to get enough sperm going, and we could see populations declining because of this.
Well, I mean, on the bright side, though, James, this is all very negative news. On the bright side, you won't have to buy that fake plastic snow for Christmas decorations anymore if you get enough microplastics in your balls.
Like, it's a very valid point. It's a very valid point. But I would counter that my wife has set some very strict rules about jizzing on the Christmas guests and claiming mistletoe is involved.
Siân?
My great sadness about this story is that when they say men's balls are full of microplastics, they don't mean like a Kinder egg. It's not like you open a scrotum and there's a little Lego man inside or a prize. I also think that we should see a positive on it and look on the bright side. And we were talking about the fertility rates. My wild take is it so bad that kids will be born made of 50% plastic. That kid is going to save so much on Botox going forward. So really, there's a strong silver lining that we are ignoring. You say health hazard, I say, fillers. I'm kidding, but so side note, I'm not really on TikTok because it makes me feel like maybe the kids won't be fine, but my sister has been showing me a couple of tween influencers talking about like being full of plastic, like surgery, and my sister was showing me a video of this girl, and the video was watch my lip filler dissolve, and I realized that we were watching a video of a woman's face melt as like content. So I don't know, I feel like the future is a terrifying place with its relationship to like plastic and body autonomy. Anyway, it makes my kind of full body autonomy, pro-choice feminism kind of slightly go nuts and want to throw everything into the ocean and read Das Kapital. But on men's balls, generally... I
feel like this problem has risen from everything being thrown into the ocean in the first place.
Oh, yeah. Just completing the cycle. I think we should all be much more attentive to men's balls. My day job is I'm a copywriter for a gay sex shop, and my colleague last week had a customer call in complaining that he had a ball stretcher in the wrong size. This was not the shop's fault. This was the guy hadn't measured himself properly. So it's quite reassuring in the sense that, you know, no matter what's happening, there's always someone out there who's ordered a ball stretcher in the wrong size, who's having a much worse day than you.
Well, it's a self-esteem issue, really.
Yeah.
You can think your balls are the wrong size, or you can blame it on the stretcher. And I feel like that's a very positive body image if you're saying the stretcher's the wrong size.
If I may take the role of the audience for just a second, I apologize. I grew up with ministers. What exactly is a ball stretcher, if I can inquire?
Have you ever thought your balls aren't stretched enough, James?
I've got a lot of plastic down there, mate.
The logic is, I think, to firm things up, make things go harder for longer. But honestly, my experience of working in this shop, hopefully they won't listen to this, is you could create any gadget for men and put the word sexy in front of it and they will buy it. Like the number of things with nebulous gains or any like measurable pleasure improvement that exist in this shop. This is the thing. I'm not convinced that a ball stretcher works or does anything, but men will buy it as a let's f about with something down there.
Does it stretch them first? Do you stretch while you're doing?
So basically, James, what you want is to have balls that have been stretched wide and long enough that you can put a stop sign on them so that you can stop an automated car running over your penis.
Look, it's a San Francisco story. It's conceivably happening there.
And that brings us to the end of this week's episode of The Gargle. I'm flipping through the ad section at the back. James, have you got anything to plug?
For people who live in Edinburgh, the monthly political gig, The Edits, will be on next week on Tuesday the 28th and again on June the 25th. I do have a new podcast project which will be coming up in October, but I cannot tell anyone about it.
Oh, well, just block out October for podcasts. Siân, have you got anything to plug?
People who live in London, I'm doing my pole dancing comedy show at Soho Theatre on the 21st and 22nd of June. It's called Pull Yourself Together. And I also do a monthly Substack about pole dancing, comedy, feminism, everything in between. It's siandocksey.substack.com.
That is wonderful. I'm Alice Fraser. You can find me online at patreon.com/Alice Fraser. It's a one-stop shop full of my stand-up specials, podcasts and blogs, as well as my weekly writers' meetings and my weekly salons where we all get into a Zoom room and chat about stuff. If you want to come, we have the level that is available for $1. You can sign up for $1 a month, but that is closing at the end of this month. So you can sign up for $1 a month, and then at the end of this month, no more $1 a month. Everyone will have to pay more to pay me. This is a Bugle podcast, an Alice Fraser production. Your editor is Ped Hunter. Your executive producer is Chris Skinner. I'll talk to you again next week.
You can listen to other programmes from The Bugle, including The Bugle, Catharsis, Tiny Revolutions, Top Stories, and The Gargle, wherever you find your podcasts.